let's take a quick look at importing general multi-banded point data into an MRP point cloud file in ProRaster Scientific. Go to the point processing menu, drop that down. Under the import LiDAR option, you'll see an import multi-banded points option. Move across and select the import multi-banded points. So here's our dialog. It is almost identical to the import LiDAR dialog. So I suggest you go back and watch those videos first. So what we're going to do is select one or more ASCII files which contain column-delimited data, and we're going to import that into an MRP. So in this demo, I'm going to import a comma-delimited file. So it's a CSV file. Select that file. Here's what it looks like just in Notepad. So the first line contains the column titles, and then every other line after that contains comma-delimited data. So we have line number, X, Y, and magnetic data. Having selected a file, this button here on the left, Edit File Import Properties, becomes available. Click that button. So here's our ASCII Import Properties dialog. So as it's a CSV file, we can pick up most things automatically. So firstly, there'll be a preview in this drop list of the first dozen or so lines in the file. Now the first line is a header row, so we want to skip that header row. So I'll increase this skip header rows counter to 1. So now we're importing from the second line, and that contains all the data. But I want to pick up those band titles from that header row, and that header row is in row number 0. And you can see here that the titles are reflected when I tick up this band title row to the first row in the file. The row numbers are 0 based. Having set that up, I can now press the autofill button to bring in those column titles and that information. So we have 4 bands, 4 rows in this spreadsheet. The first is X, then Y, then line, then magnetic. Now, if you press on this, you'll get a little drop list. So there are 4 kinds of bands: X, Y, Z, and data. Most of your bands are just going to be data, but you must identify an X band and a Y band. They're your coordinate data. And if you have a Z band, then you should identify it as well, but you don't have to have a Z band in the general multi-banded point import, but you must have an X and a Y band. So when you change a data band to X, it moves that X band up to the top. So X and Y always come first. Now let's change it back to data. So we're going to bring in our 4 columns. Over here we have here's the band name. Now I can change that to anything I want. The band name for X and Y doesn't have to be X and Y. It can be something else. So let's call it Easting and Northing. And then you have the data type for your bands. Real 8 is an 8 byte double precision value. That's suitable for X and Y. This line band would probably be an integer, so let's go for a 4-byte integer. And leveled magnetics, we've got a 4-byte real, that's fine. Over here we see a preview of what values will be imported. And here we have our data conditioning filter, which we can use to select a filter that will identify null values in our file. Now there aren't any null values in this file, so I'm not going to use any data conditioning filters. But if you drop this list down, you'll find all of the data conditioning filters that you've designed in ProRaster. And you may want to design specific data conditioning filters that identify the null values in the different bands in your data and specify them. So we can specify the coordinate system of this data. So it's from Northern Territory, so I'll select that coordinate system and then hit OK. Then everything else is just about the same as the as LiDAR data. So I'll specify the MRP file. I can add a name. I can add some metadata file if I wish. I have to specify the coordinate system of the MRP file, which is going to be zone 53. So there are some differences between LiDAR and multi-banded input. One of the primary differences is that when you import multi-banded data, it can reproject the data as it imports it. So the projection that you set in this dialog, the ASCII import properties dialog, which is the projection that the actual X and Y coordinates are in, can be different to the projection that you set for the MRP file. If they are different, the system will reproject the coordinates on the way in and store them in the MRP file in this coordinate system that you define here. Also different to LiDAR is this little cell size calculator. So with line-based data, this can help you to work out what appropriate cell size would be. So this data has a line spacing of 400 meters. It has no tie lines, so I won't put anything in there, and it has a 7.5 meter station spacing. When I put all those values in, it says, well, the cell size of 27 meters would be about right. But it also gives me some numbers which are more appropriate for minimum curvature gridding of line-based data. So I'm going to actually choose this one, 1/5 of the line spacing, which is actually 80 meters, but when you adjust it by a power of 2 to the n, it comes up with this cell size, 40 meters. So I'm going to use 40 meters. Put that in as my cell size and hit OK. And there's our data imported into ProRaster. So I can come into the color, change it to leveled magnetics, put in a equal area transform, and there's my magnetic data. So that's a very quick guide to importing multi-banded data of a general nature from ASCII files into an MRP file for display in ProRaster Scientific and for gridding in ProRaster Scientific.